When I was a kid, I had a lot of really fucked up dreams. This wasn't really surprising, as I had an insane imagination and a passion for horror. What nobody knows, and what I didn't know for a long time, is that these dreams came true. In one of them, I was in my grandma's living room with my aunt, frantically asking them where my dad was. The door to my room creaked open, and a rotten stench filled the house as a dark gray cloud of fog and gnats flowed out through the opening. And they said, "He's in your room, of course." And I got chills throughout my entire body as a smile started stretching across their lips, and they returned to casually conversing with each other. I slowly made my way to the door, trying my damnedest to resist the horrendous smell. I entered the room, and the door slammed behind me. A sickly pale glow filled the room, and a high-pitched mechanical whirring filled my ears. Strapped to the bed with cloth cuffs around his wrists, ankles, and neck was my dad. His hair falling off in patches, his eyes bloodshot and yellow, and his body bloated to a grotesque degree. I stumbled to the bedside and fell to my knees while he said, "That's my boy," over and over again. His voice became more and more raspy, and his skin started to wilt almost. Blood started pooling in his tear ducts, and his body began to swell as more blood came running out of his mouth and eyes. He kept repeating that phrase as that high-pitched noise got louder and louder until he fell silent. A pained smile frozen on his decaying, bloody face. The sound reached a crescendo, causing my head to pound, and I fell to the floor trying my damnedest to block out the sound. The door began to rattle before being violently flung open. My aunt and grandmother entered the room, but behind them was nothing but a black void in place of the living room that I had just come out of. They had large, empty holes for eyes, leaking a thick, black substance, while their teeth were like hundreds of needles, forming a smile reaching ear to ear. They twitched violently as they trudged into the dark room and peered down at me. "This is all your fault! Your fault! You did this to him!" they spat at me. I couldn't say a word. My ears had begun bleeding from my eardrums rupturing. My vision was becoming blurred. One of them pulled out one of my dad's guns and crouched down by me, slamming the barrel into my temple. They just motionlessly stared at me with those abysmal holes as raspy crackles escaped through their razor-sharp grins. They said something I can't remember, mainly because I was unable to hear much aside from that damn noise. I pulled the trigger, and then I woke up. I tried to tell my family, but they didn't believe me. Until he had developed sclerosis of the liver. That turned to cancer, which resulted in the jaundice and bloating. His side of the family, who were deeply religious, blamed me for his death, accusing me of being sent from hell and being the Antichrist. My mom cut out contact with them, moved, and things went all right. Until I had more dreams. I kept telling my mom about the accidents that she would have, or bad things that would happen. At some point, I guess my mom couldn't take it anymore. She called my aunt and grandmother on my dad's side and gave me to them, begging them to take care of me. They agreed and picked me up, bringing me to my grandma's house. All the drive there, they kept telling me about how I'd never be afraid or feel pain or anything like that again. And when we got there, they suggested that we play a game. I agreed. And then they gave me what they said was a special drink to start the game. I drank it, and then I passed out. When I woke up, I was tied so that I could not move, and my grandma was holding a gun to my head. My aunt was ranting about how I'd never ruin another life, and then I felt a pain in my head, and everything once again went dark. I woke up in the hospital. Apparently, my uncle came back to the scene and called the police and an ambulance, and my grandmother and aunt were arrested. My mother had killed herself, tormented by guilt of what she'd done. The state had me put into custody of my uncle, who had cut off all contact with my family after it all, and divorced my aunt. I don't talk about my dreams anymore, but I'm afraid to be left alone. My aunt's been recently released, and I think she wants revenge.